So I thought it might be quite interesting to do a video on how we can use some of the tools within Intellij to help us generate code and some of the refactoring tools, some of the code generation tools, and just see how that stuff works. So what I've got here is a basic TypeScript project setup that's got a few dependencies installed. TypeScript, Chai, Mocha, I've got Sin and Chai, which just basically adds some nice assertions for running against Sinan. ESLint Prettier, which I've configured within the IntelliJ settings under language and frameworks. ESLint, that's automatic configuration run on save. Prettier, automatic configuration run on save, so that I don't need to worry about any formatting stuff that just magically happens. I've also then just got a little Mocha setup script that just configures Sin and Chai and then just sets the assert and expect, attaches those to the global object so that they're available to me within the files without import. So say I want to create like a little mini application that is going to get article data. So I might start off with a in fact actually what I can do, so I've got a template block set up again within IntelliJ so that I can just kind of type DESC tab and it'll automatically generate the sort of test block there with a describe, context, it and expect. So I can put on there describe my app and I can set the context to get article 1, 2, 3, 4 and let's say there should return the correct content. Not the greatest description ever in it block, but you know it'll do for the time being. I'm going to mark that as async because we're assuming here. I'm going to assume here there's going to be some data at some point coming over the network, and just to prove that that works, and notice that when I save the file, then it automatically formats it. I can just right click on that file and click and just run that spec, and that runs. And it passes because my expectation is just doing expect 1 equals 1. If I change that to 2, and then we can see. I've already had this running earlier, so the configuration is already in here. But if I just go and remove that configuration from there, just apply that. If I go and run that. It runs and it stops. What I tend to do when running these things, I've not got it set up as the default configuration for Mocha yet, but I will normally come in here and just add the watch option to that. You can change the configuration template there and add that in there. I've not quite got that working the way I kind of want it to yet, but essentially that should allow you to default to always kind of watch a file, and that means when I run it, I don't need to reload it. I can just go in there, decrement that, save the file, and the test automatically runs again, which is nice. That obviously makes the development and testing kind of process nice and easy. So what I might say here is something along the lines of my app.get article 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to set that, and I expect it to equal, it's going to be an object, and that's going to contain the ID, and it's going to contain a heading of my headline. And so now we should probably find here that this doesn't really kind of run correctly because we don't have anything called my app. Now my app, I want to be an instance of a class, and some of the tooling in IntelliJ works better with classes. So yeah, that's kind of part of the reason I've gone with that for the moment. It allows me to demonstrate some of the things. But if I go const my app equals new my app, and just do that. We can see if we try and just see if I try and run that again. We get the notice when I get errors as well, it doesn't rerun the tests properly, so it's not going to always kind of rerun the test, but as long as the kind of code's valid, it'll run. So now it's kind of complaining that there's no class called MyApp. So I can go to here now, and I can just do Alt Enter on that, and that gives me some options. And the top one of which is create class MyApp. There are some other options in here. So you've got refactor. It doesn't really kind of give me anything there. It's not refactor anything. Generate, that doesn't give me anything. But yeah, the Alt Enter does give me the option to create a class. So I can just select that, and now I've got a class called MyApp. And again, I can rerun that test, and now it's going to complain again. It's got a different reason to fail now. Property getArticle doesn't exist on type MyApp. So now we can see the offending thing is this here, this getArticle. I could just do the Alt Enter on that again and do create method getArticle, and that'll do that. The thing I don't like about that is that it's got the I don't like the fact that it is returning void, and I don't think I can get around. I don't think I can get around that because it's not going to infer it from. I don't think it's going to infer it from this, so I may have to just do that and go create method. But before I do that, let me just check. There's nothing on the generate. Refactoring doesn't give me anything, but I can do that and do create method. I guess I could try going here refactor. Remember change signature? That's quite good. So I can change that return type there to promise. Let's change it to promise article, and let's change that number there to ID. So we can preview that. Preview doesn't blah blah blah. Yada yada yada. Okay, that's quite cool. Do refactor. So there we go. Now we've got something that's going to be that looks more like what I want. I'm now missing a type here. Let's see what we can do there. Create class. So we've got the option there: create class article or create interface article. Well, I actually want a type there. I don't want the class or an interface, but I'm going to probably select interface just so that it gives me the scaffolding for it. But again, there's no generate option, no refactoring option there, I don't think. But I can go create interface, and I can then just change that to type. That means it needs to be equals. And here I'm going to say that's got an ID of number and a heading of type string. So at least that gives us something there, and we should also find now. I can if I rerun that, what's it complaining about now? Complaining a function is declared type is neither undefined void nor any must return a value. Okay, so we need to return something. So let's return. In fact, let's just throw an error. Throw new error. Oops. Okay. So we're expecting kind of correct content. We actually get oops. So let's remove that, and let's return 1, 2, 3, 4 ID and heading my headline. Is that right? Is that what we want? So it's error. It's failing. It doesn't like it now because it expects that to be a promise, and there's nothing asynchronous about this. So I could do this like promise.resolve, and that should work. And it doesn't work because as that's returning a promise, that actually needs to be awaited, and then that should. And then also because we're comparing objects, that should be deep equal, and now it passes. I don't want to use promise.resolve there because it's kind of adding quite a bit of code to the actual function. But if I do that, if I just make that function async, that will have the same impact. So that's all very well and good. This probably doesn't look that useful because we're not even using the ID function. We don't appear to have any reason to kind of use it. But what I can do here is just say copy that test block there, which I know is a little bit naughty, but it serves my purpose here. And I can change it to get article 5678. So let's change that to 5678, and let's change that to 5678, and let's change this to my other headline. So now we've got an error there because we've got the wrong content coming back. So I can go here and just say if ID equals 5678, then do something, and else we're going to do something else. And here I will then change that to 5678, and I'll change this to my other headline. So now that's all kind of working. But obviously the design of the code here is not very good using an if statement. We're quickly going to run out of options there. So I know I need to do something there, and I feel like what I'd like to do is delegate the responsibility for getting that data to something else. So I want to be able to do something like get article data, and then make that equal to data service dot get article ID. I want to be able to do something like that, and I want that. I'm thinking I probably want that data service to be injected into this class. So it's going to have to be we have to reference it with this dot data service. That's probably going to be asynchronous, so I'm probably going to await that. And if I'm doing that, and again, what I'm about to do, I'm doing this because I know the sequence in which this will work. So I can't do anything here. I can create a field called data service, but that doesn't really help me very much. There's not a lot on the generate. It doesn't really give me generate constructor. What's that done there? It's not really, doesn't really help me. Nothing in the refactoring. But if I say I've got this data service here and I want to be able to inject data service into there, then, and obviously that data service doesn't exist at the moment. If we're doing that, let me comment out this test for the moment so that I can, so I'm really working on one test at once. We should be able to rerun that, and that'll error because we've got all this stuff now. The data service doesn't exist on type my app. So I can do that. I can create a variable called data service that gives me something, and I can then and bear in mind if I get rid of that, I could add that into the constructor there, but that then gives me data service type any, which I don't want. If I create the variable first, then what I can do is say something along the lines of that is going to be data service interface, and just make that an empty object like that. And now if I go to here and I do that and I say create constructor in class, now it actually injects it with the correct type, which is what I want. And now I can kind of connect that up by doing that, which is kind of quite nice. So now that kind of stops that being red. Get rid of that again. So data service is red there. If I add the private in, now that connects that up. We're missing a data service interface, but we've at least got a data service now. It can't find name data service interface. But now I can go back here and I can do that, and I can say create interface data service interface. That's nice, that kind of gives me that, but now I'm missing the get article. So I can just go on there and go alt enter on that and say create method get. In fact, before I do that, let's let's so if I was to do that, show you what would happen. Create method get article. Again, it's giving me, takes an ID of number and it returns back an any, and I don't want the any. I want it to return back something. So here I'm going to say returns article data. And so that means now when I do that, possibly, yes, that's going to give me an article data. Now it also puts this async at the top, which is a little bit weird, but we can get rid of that. Then we save that. That's good. So now the get article is fine, and all we're missing is a type here of article data. If I then do Alt Enter on that, it asks me, it gives me the option to create a class or an interface. I don't actually want to type again, but we can go with create interface here and go back to there, change that to type, and so now we might, I don't know, where's that going to run? It's probably not going to, it doesn't like, oh, that should be equals on there. So we'll save that. This data service.get article is not a function. Oh, okay, so that's good. That's good. So let's make that a function. So we can come down here and say data service.get article. So notice that now, because we've got the interface there, it automatically completes it for us. It gives us one option. That's data. That's get article. It gives me the parentheses, which I don't want, but now I can go equals synon.stub. Now I can just do this as a function like that and do with args, and I can do that and do 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can then do resolves. Name banana, and that works. Let me just, so now it says synon doesn't exist. I'm not sure why it's not giving me the red line there, but anyway, I'm gonna just go up here and just do an import synon from synon. So now that should, so now so now we're passing it, we're green. Back to something actually kind of compiling and working, but this is kind of wrong because this is kind of not what this is not what I'm expecting. What I actually want to happen here is I want this to tell me, I want this kind of the type support, and I also want to put in, I'm conscious of that we haven't defined the article data type here. So first thing I'm going to come and do here, I think, is actually give some type information here, and that takes the parameters for a start off, which is ID of number, and then the return type, which is going to be a promise of article data. That's not complaining there, so that tells me that I think I want to go and tell it what the article data looks like, and for that I think I'm going to say it has a ID of number, and let's say we've just to make it slightly awkward, let's say we've got content with the title type string. So now that should tell us that this is kind of, now we get the type inference on the on our stub here, because name doesn't exist on article data, so I can get rid of that, and I can now say ID 1, 2, 3, 4 content, because it's going to give me the auto completion, and I can now say T, and it gives me title, and I can say that is equal to my, in fact let's just let's leave it like that for the moment, because now what I'm going to go and do, in fact I will connect that up. So now what I should be able to do is come back up here and say I want to get rid of that, I want to get rid of that and all of that, and I want to change that to just be returning ID, and I want this to be returning article data dot content dot title. And now that passes, and I should be able to change that to my headline 2, and that now fails. So I can go back to that's being my headline. Now if I go to here and change that, now this is going to complain that I don't have anything in here. doesn't give me any options there. Generate argument stubs. What's that do? Interesting. Gives me something. But we can change that to data service. We can do an alt enter on that. We can create the variable data service. We can make that equal to data service interface. We can do data service dot get article equals synon dot stub. We can add the type signature onto that, which will be a number, and it'll return a promise of type article and that's going to be with args 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's going to resolve to ID 5, 6, 7, 8 and heading, just to see, not heading, it's going to be content, and that's going to be title. And let's just put my other headline 2. So again, we see that fail. I can come to there, I can get rid of that. And now we see it pass again. We can also add to the end of this. We can actually do a verification that the call was made, even though the content's been returned. If we want to verify that actually we are getting that stuff from the get article, we can put here expect data service dot get article to have been called once with, and let's put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because that will then fail. Expected it to be called with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and it was actually called 1, 2, 3, 4, so we can change that to 1, 2, 3, 4. And I would argue now the fact that we have that stub there doing that, we have the expectation here that we're getting the right content back, and we're also kind of knowing that we're getting the data from the right place with the right argument. I think that actually renders that test now redundant, so we can get rid of that. And now we have a final sort of setup there that's got a, we started off with a an expectation based on an object with a method call on it. We defined the class, which we then generated using the tools in Intellij. We used that to generate the method. We used the refactoring tools to change the type signature. We then used that to be able to automatically generate the type for the article. Defined the dependency that we wanted here, together with the actual item and its method call. We had to then define that here, and we could define it with an interface, which and then we could we defined that dependency first in the calling of the class. Excuse me. We used the alt enter to generate the variable. Define the name of the interface. Use then alt enter to generate the constructor definition. Added the private keyword in to connect it up to the usage here. Drove out the creation of the data service interface from here. Added the method via alt enter from here. In fact, before we did that, we defined the return type here, which then meant that when we create the method, it automatically did that. So the fact that it had a weight, an article type, meant that we got the promise article type here, so we didn't have to do anything there. We were then able to we got this sort of the auto completion on adding the get article to that. We had to define the type for the stub in order to get the kind of protection for doing stuff here. We were able to then generate the article data type again using the alt enter, add the content into there, which then told us kind of what we needed to put in here, and we could then use that when we're completing the function here. So yeah, that's just a little bit about using some of the tooling within IntelliJ to automatically generate some of the code. Obviously, as I say, it works pretty well for classes. I don't think it necessarily works so well with functions and stuff, and I'm not sure how this compares to VS Code in terms of that ability to automatically generate code. I don't know if IntelliJ is kind of better or kind of not as good in that regard. But anyway, hope it's been useful.